Chapter 9, End Scene. My father used to say something that I didn't fully understand. Be glad when a woman leaves your life. That's more money in your pocket. Back then, I thought he was talking about dollars, gas money, dates, birthdays, hair appointments, cash requests, the visible expenses. Years later, I realized he wasn't talking about money at all. He was talking about resources, time in your pocket, energy in your pocket, focus in your pocket, peace in your pocket, life in your pocket. At the time, I couldn't appreciate what he meant because I was busy building futures. Every woman wasn't just a woman to me. She was a blueprint, a possibility, a 5 year plan, a life I could already see in my head. After Jessica, there was an unspoken verdict floating around my family. Jessica counted, maybe Jay counted. Everybody else seemed to be measured against those relationships and found lacking. No matter who I brought around, no matter how beautiful she was, no matter how young she was, no matter how impressive she looked standing beside me, nobody seemed convinced. The truth is, I wasn't convinced either. So I kept building another woman, another plan, another future, another set of blueprints spread across the table. And every time I walked into a room with a beautiful woman on my arm, I thought I was introducing her. Looking back, I was introducing evidence. Evidence that I was doing okay. Evidence that I had made it. Evidence that I could build another life. Evidence that I was still worthy after the collapse of the last one. I thought I was showing people the woman. The truth is, I was trying to show them me. The funny thing about trials is that eventually the courtroom empties. The jury goes home. The judge leaves. The spectators disappear. But sometimes the defendant keeps arguing. That's what I was doing. Presenting evidence to people who weren't even keeping score anymore. Trying to prove I was enough to people. Trying to prove I was enough. Trying to prove I could do it again. Trying to prove I was winning. Some of those women were beautiful. Some were troubled. Some were kind. Some were chaotic. Some carried wounds that looked too much like my own. Different names, different faces, different stories, but the blueprint was often the same. I would see a future before I saw a person, and every time that future collapsed, life would hand me the blueprints back, folded, wrinkled, stamped with the same message: start over. Another plan I made turned out to be trash. I wasn't saying that to the women. I was saying that to the audience, to my friends, to my family, to the invisible jury I carried around in my head. Look, another one didn't work. Another dream collapsed. Another future got demolished before construction was complete. The nights were the hardest. That's when the hatred showed up. Not hatred toward women, not hatred toward God, hatred toward myself. I would lie awake, replaying every mistake, every weakness, every compromise, every moment where I wasn't the man I wanted to be. Part of me believed that if I lost enough weight, made enough money, became disciplined enough, somehow disappointment would stop finding my address. But disappointment always knew where I lived. The strange thing is that I could have escaped. A phone call away was attention. A phone call away was company. A phone call away was the old version of satisfaction. But I stayed in the room. I stayed in the loneliness. I stayed with the silence. I stayed with the pain. And every morning the sun would hit my window. Not once, not occasionally. Every morning. The light would crawl across the wall like a message addressed directly to me. I never saw it as random. I saw it as God rewarding me for staying, not winning, not being strong, not having answers, for staying, for refusing to run, for sitting with the pain long enough to learn from it. The sunlight seemed to say the same energy every day. Good. Now get up, try again. So I did. Sometimes I walked through the neighborhood. Sometimes I ran behind Kroger where nobody could see me. I wasn't much of a runner. I was carrying too much weight, too much pride, too much shame, but I ran anyway. And every step felt like planting mustard seed. Not because mustard seeds are small. People always focus on their size. That's not what fascinates me. What fascinates me is what was that mustard plants, seed plants spread, they take over, they refuse to stay contained. That's how I wanted God gifts to work in my life. One good habit, one disciplined choice, one prayer, one walk, one run, one honest conversation, one sunrise. I wanted those things to spread into every corner of my life until they crowded out everything that didn't belong there. I spent years trying to transform my life enough through grand plans. What finally changed me was invasive acts of obedience. Little things that refused to stay little. The moment I knew the performance was over, wasn't the relationship failed, was when I met Ireland. Ireland, Irelena. We met through grief. My family was hurting, her family was hurting, and somehow, without trying, we became friends, then lovers, then friends again. No audition, no performance, no presentation, no evidence, no jury, no stage. Just two people understanding each other. It wasn't perfect, but it was real. And because it was real, it exposed the lie. I had spent years believing connection had to be manufactured, managed, negotiated, presented, earned. Then life handed me an example that forms naturally. And once I saw that, I couldn't unsee it. Looking back, the character who died wasn't the lover. It wasn't the provider. It wasn't even the ego. It was the performer. The man who thought beautiful women were proof. The man who thought applause was proof. The man who thought status was proof. The man who thought being admired was the same thing as being loved. That character died slowly, blueprint by blueprint, sunrise by sunrise, mustard seed by mustard seed, until one day the theater was empty, the jury was gone, the audience was gone, the lights faded, the curtain fell, and for the rest of the time in my life, I wasn't afraid. Well, for the first time in my life, I wasn't afraid what came next. I no longer needed another scene. End scene.